The number one worst ingredient hiding in your food that you need to avoid is added sugar. Today we overconsume added sugar to the tune of 77 grams of added sugar every single day per person. This is per person. That adds,
Per day.
Per day, yeah. That's about 20 teaspoons of added sugar. We have no biological requirement for added sugar. And the vast majority of people today are struggling with problems with regard to their weight, right? They are either overweight or obese. In fact, by the year 2030, 1 in 2 people are going to be not just overweight, but obese. And today, more than 2/3 of adults have a weight problem. And then we can look further to statistics regarding metabolic health, and only about 1 in 10 people have quote unquote metabolic health. 9 in 10 have some component of metabolic illness. Now, with regard to added sugar, the dose makes the poison, but again, we tend to overconsume it, and it tends to hide out in food products that are ultra processed and that tend to really be foundational to this obesity epidemic.
Right. So the key there is hiding in our food.
Yeah.
And like, where is sugar hiding?
It's everywhere. That's the biggest problem with added sugar, is that it's insidious. It hides in places that you wouldn't expect it to be. And by the end of the day, you've ended up over-consuming it by such a significant amount. I mean, there's added sugar now in commercial bread products. They put it in low-fat yogurts that tend to be marketed as healthy, right? It's in sauces. It's in coffee drinks. People go to coffee chains, right, looking to get a coffee when in fact it's dessert. It's in commercial cereals. It's literally everywhere at this point. And it's added calories. We don't tire of consuming it. It lights up reward centers in the brain that stimulate the neurotransmitter dopamine, which is involved in reward. And so it's very pleasurable to consume, and it's a huge problem. Studies show that a single high sugar bolus can negatively affect your hormones, like testosterone, in both men and women, to a degree that lasts for 2 hours after consumption. It can affect blood pressure. One high sugar bolus, about 75 grams of glucose, can elevate systolic blood pressure. And again, this persists for 2 hours post-ingestion. So those are just sort of the things that happen that you can't necessarily feel. But what you can feel when you overconsume added sugar is that it drives hunger. It can create irritability and feelings of anxiety in people prone to anxiety when you have what's called reactive hypoglycemia. So a very high sugar meal tends to send blood sugar through the roof. It then stimulates a response from your pancreas. Your pancreas secretes insulin, whose job it is to get sugar out of the blood. But what happens is insulin isn't an instrument of precision. It's more like a blunt tool. And so when you eat a lot of sugar, oftentimes insulin is oversecreted, and it tends to send sugar. It tends to send your blood sugar below baseline. And when it goes below baseline, that's when you can experience feelings of hunger, for example, and it leaves you wanting more. Right? It's a huge problem. So it's not necessarily that a little bit of sugar here and there is going to be detrimental. The problem with added sugar really is that it's just everywhere these days in massive quantities, and we tend to overconsume it.
Right. And as it's hiding.
Yeah.
I think the bread is the best. I mean, we've talked about this before, that you eat bread not thinking it's got sugar in it, but a lot of bread these days has sugar in it. It's like, why is there sugar in our bread? Yeah,
you don't need sugar to make bread.
No.
The sugar that's in bread floods your system with sugar, right? And that's before the starch molecules begin to break down and continue to add to the sugar deluge, right? Because, I mean, the starch in bread takes very little effort, right, due to the amylase enzymes in your saliva and in your stomach to break down, ultimately becoming sugar as well. So, again, it's just there's sugar everywhere, and it goes by many different names. It's really hard to identify on labels these days. Now you can see added sugar, but sometimes food manufacturers will be very tricky and hide sugary ingredients that don't necessarily have to be identified under the added sugar indicator in the nutrition facts label. Okay. For example, maltodextrin. Maltodextrin is essentially pure glucose, but it is held together in chains that are very easily broken. But essentially, when you consume maltodextrin, no different than consuming sugar, functionally, biologically.
Really?
Yeah, and maltodextrin is not technically a sugar, so you're not going to see it,
Right.
indicated on the added sugar.
So it's literally
Nutrition
hiding in
facts.
there.
Literally hiding.
It's literally hiding.
Food manufacturers are sneaky. They know that consumers are now aware of the fact that added sugar is, again, empty calories, right? Provides no nutritional value. They know that consumers are looking out for it. But so then they'll find other ingredients to basically serve the same purpose.
Yeah, interesting. There's another thing that I had read once that with like low fat things, like low fat cheese, in order to get it to taste up to liking, they decreased the fat, but they had to add sugar to make it taste appropriate.
Food manufacturers, they want repeat customers.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, if a food product doesn't taste delicious, consumers aren't going to buy it.
Right.
And we are all programmed to enjoy sugar. There's not a single person out there that dislikes the taste of sweet things, because sugar is, for one of our hunter-gatherer ancestors, would have been a life-saving component of our food. It helps the body to store fat by stimulating insulin, which turns your fat cells. It basically creates a one-way valve on your fat cells. That's not to say that sugar is inherently fattening. Energy balance comes into play here, but sugar is one of those things that we generally, if we like something, right? If we enjoy something, there's an evolutionary purpose behind it, right? We enjoy sex; it's to further the success of the species, right? Sugar is one of those things that we enjoy, that we evolved to enjoy. It was relatively rare for the vast majority of human evolution. I mean, think about where you would find sugar. Its presence would occur in ripe fruit, and that would be seasonally available, right? You wouldn't find sugar in animal products, save for example, an animal's liver, which stores sugar in the form of glycogen. That's why liver sometimes has like a sweet flavor. But other than that, sugar is seldom available in the wild, in the wild, right? But today it's available everywhere. It's added to our foods. We have access to fruit 24/7. Fruit is great, but we've never seen this amount of sugar. Our bodies have never seen this amount of sugar before in human history. Mm-hmm. It's one of the reasons why, for the first time, there are more overweight people walking the planet than underweight. Yeah. It's a big problem. So definitely become a sleuth. If you get anything from this video, look at the nutrition facts label of your food. Look at the ingredients list. And I try to identify where the sugar is. Generally, anything that ends in ose is going to be a sugar. So lactose, dextrose, glucose, sucrose, fructose. Yeah, those tend to be sugars. It's like the suffix used to identify sugar. But obviously, those sometimes will be shrouded by their sort of trade names, like coconut sugar.
I was going to ask about that.
Obviously, you would be able to identify coconut sugar as sugar, but something like molasses, is a sugar and might not be as easily identifiable.
But we've talked about this before, but sugar is sugar. And so a lot of times, like when we think about foods, processed foods mostly, that are hiding sugar, a lot of times it's looked at as where it's like sweetened with maple syrup, sweetened with coconut sugar.
Yeah.
And like that is, to me, like a mask over sugar.
Yeah.
Hiding behind this trendy new way to.
Exactly.
Is that accurate? Like sugar is sugar.
Sugar is sugar. Yeah. I'm not even convinced that high fructose corn syrup is any worse for you than regular old table sugar. I mean, chemically it's very similar. It's about roughly 50% glucose, 50% fructose, which is akin to sucrose, which is 50% glucose, 50% fructose. I think with high fructose corn syrup, it's a little bit higher in its fructose proportion, but it's just empty calories. That's all that it is. Empty calories. It's very pleasurable, particularly when combined with fat and flour and salt and other common components of ultra processed foods. We don't tire of eating it. It provides zero nutritional value, and it causes you to eat more over the long term, because sugar, when we eat a lot of it, again, it sends your blood sugar through the roof, then it causes it to drop, and that can trigger feelings of hunger and anxiety and stuff like that. We did a podcast recently with Jesse and Chowsby, who's going to come on the show and talk all about monitoring your blood glucose levels, which was a super interesting conversation.
I can't wait.
Yeah.
I didn't get to tune in on that one, but I'm pumped to listen to it. She's cool.
She's badass.
Yeah, she is.
Well, stay tuned.
Yeah, for that one. That's a little teaser. Look at us.
Yeah, a little teaser. Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks for watching, you guys.
Yeah.